All right, everybody, here we are at the Lantern TV Sports Postgame Show where just hours ago, Noah Ruggles hit the game-winning kick on that goalpost to lift Ohio State to a Rose Bowl victory and what was one for the ages. I would call it a historic night here for a number of reasons. Three of them are C.J. Stroud, Rose Bowl record holder, 6 touchdowns, most all-time in a game. C.J. Stroud also broke the single-game passing yards record for Ohio State, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm almost at a loss for words for the kind of day he had. One of the best single game receiving performances of all time, the best single game receiving performance in Rose Bowl history. Jack, unbelievable night in every single facet. One of the all-time great Rose Bowl games. Describe what you saw, the environment, the offense, and what was literally one for the ages.
I think what you saw was Jackson Smith and Jigba and C.J. Stroud's connection kind of culminate into this performance. All year they were really building this. Even when they had Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave on the field, Stroud had that connection with Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I mean, you just saw it here tonight. And once he moved up the depth chart to number 1, he kept it up. And I mean, he even probably performed even better than he had all year. 350 yards. That's something that's never been done before in the Rose Bowl. It's never been done before in Ohio State history. So, I mean, you got to give it to him, and you got to give it to CJ too, because he wasn't only throwing the ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba. He was giving it. He gave it to Marvin Harrison 3 times for a touchdown. Julian Fleming was getting involved. He got his tight ends involved. Rossi had a catch. Ruckert had 3 or 4. So you got to give it to Stroud as well, because he wasn't focusing in on one guy. He was really spreading the ball around the field, and that's why he threw for 575 yards and 6 touchdowns. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure, Jack. You mentioned that, and there are a lot of questions coming into this week about Ohio State moving Jackson Smith and Jigba into that wide receiver 1 role, coming from the slot position where he'd get a lot of the drag routes. It looked very similar to that. It was a lot of simple concept routes and stuff like that. But things didn't click for Ohio State early, Jacob. There was very poor tackling on the defensive end on Cam Rising's 4th down touchdown run, and then also on that unfortunate kickoff where Lathan Ransom went down with an injury. Ryan Day in the postgame said that it was similar to the Josh Proctor injury, where it's just kind of you fear the worst. I know they put the air cast on him. But, Jacob, what can you say do you think was said in that locker room to turn the tides?
You know, I would have loved to be in that locker room for the halftime speech, because with all the players we talked with post game, they just mentioned everybody got in front of the team, said we're not going to lose this game. We can't go out on this kind of a note and lose in the Rose Bowl. Ohio State's down 35-21 at halftime. Whatever was said, it definitely worked, because Ohio State in the second half came out and looked like a completely different team. I think they rode a lot of momentum, a lot of confidence. Tommy Eichenberg rather stood out a lot on defense. They got the stops when they needed to, and I mean, if it came down to the halftime speech, you know, whatever it takes to do, and you know, history. That's what they left on the field tonight.
A few quotes from that halftime speech might be up there in Ohio State history if they have a recording of it, because that was one. And the reason why I think we saw that happen, and the reason why you saw Utah get out to the early lead, was something you were talking about all day, even when you arrived. Even, you know, we've been here in LA for a few days now. It's been all Utah fans. Everywhere you go, the Utah Utes are surrounding LA, and then you come here, and I think you said, what, like 90% you thought, 90-10 Utah to Ohio State fan ratio? How do you think that played into them getting that early lead, and maybe how impressive that is now for C.J. Stroud and Ohio State to come back, considering that this was, you could say, virtually a road game?
Yeah, it was interesting, because I remember we were down on the field pregame, and Utah came out to start warming up, and it felt like a jet engine had just went off next to my ear. It was so loud in here, and I think that's just indicative of the Utah fan base. And you really got to give the props to that fan base. They traveled very well to this game. And, you know, they showed out, and I think that's what really helped Utah. They kind of had that energy to start the game, where it was like, it just felt like they were building up on the Buckeyes. They were doing the right things. They were making great plays on offense. They were playing pretty stout defense to start the game. So, you know, I think that really played into the slow start Ohio State had, but as the game wore on, Ohio State was slowly getting more used to it, and that's how you saw them kind of use that second half and get that comeback.
Yeah, for sure, Jack. You mentioned that. I was immersed with the people in Section 14. It was a lot of let's go Utes, let's go Utah, go Utes, whatever combination. And even during Hang On Sloopy, while the Ohio State faithful, they were doing the OHIO. Now the Utah fans, they came back with their own UTAH. I've never heard that before, but I mean, anything that works. You just got to, like you said, Jack, they traveled well, and there was a lot of smack talk, let's say that, between the people. It was very entertaining just kind of having having the surround sound being immersed within the people. Yeah, so that's, I mean, it was a heck of a game, just top to bottom. One of the greatest I've ever been to, and I mean, I don't know if anyone will ever top that again.
And Ohio State fans alike will be thinking about this one for a long, long time. And as it carries into next year, you know, Ryan Day talked about momentum going into next year. I think they achieved that here tonight. A historic one for the ages here at the Rose Bowl for the final time this year for the Ohio State football season. For myself, Kevin Lapka, Jack Emerson, Casey Smith, and Jacob Binge, we're saying good night. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Have a great new year for the Lantern TV sports team. Take care.